Our name is Ghosts Want You Dead. In the dark and isolation, we meet our very devils. But will they follow if we emerge from our aloneness?
Hello, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Rebekah. I'm back.
Yay!
I was taken to the bed ill, needed the smelling salts. Really, it was just a terrible little bout of COVID, but I'm alive, mostly. Yay.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad.
Yes. I missed you and you guys. Hello, people. I listened to the episode that you did without me and I enjoyed it. I didn't really have anything to add. I just enjoyed your retelling of back and forth cattiness with Carolyn and Vicky.
I was pleased with my work on Instagram this week, which you should all go look at Ghosts Want You Dead on Instagram.
We have a very fun Instagram.
Well, shall we then?
Let's do it. Victoria Winters reminds us that she's an orphan and that this spooky place is her only home she's ever had. And it's also spooky and menacing and terrible.
But also, she kind of digs it.
Yeah.
At the Evanses, Sam answers a call from Roger, sexily asking if he's alone.
That was so hot. That was like, oh, Roger, I'm alone.
Sam is pretentious, and Roger is just like, what the fuck are you talking about, weirdo?
Yeah, I did enjoy, like, Sam says something about, but for the devil's in my head. And Roger calls out his pretentious nonsense and is just like, yeah, buddy. Okay.
Well, Roger is calling to find out what Bill Malloy wanted and what he was up to, and if Sam has snitched on him. But Sam doesn't really recall because he was very drunk. Sam puts the phone down to get another drink while Roger continues bitching him out, but he's not listening, and eventually he just hangs up the receiver and rips up a sketch he has done of Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin while the phone rings again in the background, which he does not answer. Opening credits. At Collinwood, Roger is annoyed and trying to call Sam back again as Liz enters the drawing room. He lies and says he's calling the office, and Liz is like, speaking of the office, the fuck aren't you there? Well, what am I paying you for?
Right.
He changes the subject and snitches on Carolyn for trying to see Burke. They argue about money and how Roger doesn't have any, but Liz still
And
does.
yeah, how he's squandered all of his inheritance.
And she stumbles over her lines a couple of times while he bullies her about being a shut-in. And she scolds him for not telling her about Ned calling back in the wee small hours, and she's also vaguely threatening, and Roger flees upstairs.
Yeah.
Back over at the Evanses, Maggie and Sam are doing their same old song and dance routine about how she's worried about him, but he's mean and won't tell her what the problem is. And she wants to know why he tore up that sketch, and would you believe that he is pretentious and annoying? But
Not Sam.
uh,
Not second Sam.
Second Sam is a slightly different flavor of annoying than the first Sam.
Not my flavor. I liked the first Sam better. I thought his acting was a little over the top in a fun way, and I think that the Sam is trying to play it more subtle, and I respect that, but I just don't like him. I do like Maggie, and she offers her dad some coffee to try to cheer him up. He's being a misogynistic dick about it and just being miserable and awful. He's worried that he was too drunk and might have spilled the beans to Malloy. He hollers at her to leave it alone because she's prying again, and he storms out and she goes to pry some by calling the Collins.
Yeah, pretty much what
Yeah.
you said. He's pretentious and annoying and trying to make up reasons for why he's said to get her to leave him alone, but she doesn't buy it. She does tease him about drinking too much, and when she mentions Roger, Sam yells at her, and God, he sucks. I hate Sam. Then Maggie calls Collinwood and Vicky answers. Initially says that Roger isn't in, but it turns out he is, and comes in and takes the phone when she says it's for him, but then just hangs up on Maggie. He says he's late for work and is being snide and shitty with Vicky.
Yeah, Vicky says to Maggie on the phone he doesn't confide in her, and then Roger walks in at that moment and asks, "Well, why should I?" And he's just being uphill in general.
And as he starts towards the door to leave for work, Liz comes down to ask if he's seen Carolyn, and he has not. Vicky finally tells Liz that Carolyn had called to say that she wouldn't be making it back for dinner. Liz and Vicky are both stumbling over their lines here,
Yeah.
and which Vicky doesn't usually do.
No,
She's
she doesn't.
usually
She's, like,
pretty
quite on
on
it.
it. Jinx. Uh,
Hee.
Vicky excuses herself upstairs as Liz phones Joe, who is embarrassed about his drunken outburst, which I guess was just the night before.
Yeah, this is, like, day 7 or something. Like, I mean, it is some ridiculous level of only the first fortnight.
Well, Liz is dismayed to learn that Joe and Carolyn don't have plans. She asks for Bill, but he is not at the office, so she asks for Joe to come by to talk to her later. We head back over to the Evanses, where miserable old Sam is still drinking and they're still having the same old fight. And
Maggie's writing him a note, and Sam comes in, and she says she wants to know what's going on and keeps prying, and that she called Roger, and he flies off the handle and starts screaming at her and throwing his little hissy fits.
well, and he says that her prying may get him killed, and
Yes.
then Maggie is being sweet and Sam is being awful, rinse and repeat.
And then she does calm him down finally and then leaves to presumably go to an Al-Anon meeting.
Well, yeah, Roger is banging on the door and yelling, and Sam emerges from the bedroom all rumpled, and Roger is butthurt about being hung up on, like asking, is something wrong with the phone? Because surely you didn't hang up on me and ignore my calls. And Sam pours another drink, because of course he does. Roger is stumbling over his lines here. They must have really been in a rush today, 'cause can't nobody get a sentence out.
I feel it.
And Roger is still upset about what Sam may have told Bill or Maggie, and he's pissed that Maggie called his house. Sam says, "Oh, I was pissed too. I almost hit her." And Roger's like, "Well, you should have."
Mine goes that says he was very upset and that he almost hit Maggie, and Roger imparts his parenting ideals and says, well, he ought to have done so. Because spare the rod, spoil the demon child, I suppose.
Sam and Roger tell each other that they hate each other.
Yes.
And Roger is vaguely threatening again and exits, and then Sam pours yet another drink, and then he's vaguely threatening to the air after Roger is gone.
I'll
So
show you,
they're
motherfucker.
maybe both gonna kill each other. Back at Collinwood, Liz is still trying to reach Ned. Vicky interrupts to say that she's going into town and wants to know if Liz needs anything, and accidentally is like, "I don't know why you don't get out more," forgetting that she's a weird shut-in, and so
Yeah.
she's immediately like, "Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to," but Liz is not bothered. Vicky leaves, and Liz goes back to trying to get Ned on the phone and leaves an urgent message, and then someone bangs on the door. Oh boy, it's fucking Sam. End credits. Episode 42, Victoria Winters reminds us that Collinwood is old and creepy. In the foyer at Collinwood, Sam asks Liz for Roger. She lets him know that he's at work, and he's being all weird and bashful, but she's being polite to this weird drunk stranger that has showed up uninvited at her house. He's planning on telling her the truth, but she asks him to leave, and he is talking around, but practically saying that he wants to talk about Burke's manslaughter trial and how Roger did it.
Well, and during that, she thinks that he's trying, extortion.
Well, she brings that up a couple of
Yeah.
times, but in the drawing room, Sam is being pretentious and Liz isn't really interested in entertaining it. She's like, "Yeah, that's great, but why are you here?" And Sam tells her about the portrait that he's doing for Burke, and they talk around the issue for a while. Liz offers him a drink. We hop over to a restaurant in Bangor where Burke joins a Mr. Blair at a table where they're discussing the possibility of Burke purchasing the Collinses' outstanding demand notes.
Which is mentioned earlier in the back and forth argument with Liz and Roger, where she's basically saying, I bought out your indebtedness so it wouldn't go to public interest because you fucked our company and our family, and you're a bad little brother and you need to do as you're told. But while Blair and Burke are sitting there having this conversation, we see Carolyn stalking him in the background, waiting for him to join her for the dinner that she has decided they're going to have.
Yeah, she comes in
It's
and
weird, weird,
sits
weird.
at the next table over and is just staring him down until he acknowledges
It's
her.
definitely a tactic.
Uh, and he
Maybe we should
doesn't
try that.
he doesn't notice her at first, and Burke and Blair continue discussing their business, but Burke is being a dick to him for no reason, and he wants assurances that the deal won't be connected to him. He goes on about his revenge scheme while we see Carolyn in the background touching up her makeup. Blair tells Burke that Collinwood is a financial liability and that Liz had to recently petition to have the property taxes reduced on account of the West Wing being closed off. Carolyn finally catches Burke's eye, so he looks a little annoyed and walks over, and she asks if he's surprised, and he says, "Not really." Back in the drawing room at Collinwood, Sam thanks Liz for the drink and she asks him to get to the point, but he chickens out and says he just stopped by because he wanted to see the portraits, but she's not buying it. He does start to reveal the manslaughter business, and she seems to know what's up and starts to bawl him out, thinking that he's trying to blackmail them. They're interrupted by Joe knocking on the door. She asks if he has seen Carolyn, but he has not, but he does say he has an idea where she might be, and reveals that a friend of his saw her following Burke to Bangor. She sends Joe into the drawing room to keep awful old Sam busy while she tries to reach Bill again. Back in Bangor, Carolyn reveals that she followed Burke because she was curious to see who he was meeting. Burke looks annoyed, but leads her back to his table and introduces her to Blair and hilariously tells the truth that Blair is helping him take her family's fortunes. He also says unsubtly that Blair has another appointment and then whispers, "I'll call you in a little bit." So Blair leaves and Burke and Carolyn flirt. Burke is concerned what the family might think of their having lunch together and if she's going to say it was her idea. He gives her his fancy silver pin. They flirt.
When he was all like, "You'd be surprised how quickly I can wind up my business." That was a notable line that made me laugh. I'm like, it was a little edgy for the
You giggled at
1960s.
that.
I was like, "Oh, Burke."
Back at Collinwood, Liz is still in the foyer trying to reach Bill, but he's still not in the office. So she goes back to the drawing room, and when Joe asks if she could find Bill, Sam interrupts to say, "Oh, don't listen to anything Bill might say about me." So Liz again tries to get Sam to say why he came, but he chickens out and just runs out the door. Joe says he was being weird and wouldn't say anything at all while she was out of the room, and Joe offers to go after him, but Liz says, he'll come back when he can't keep his little secret anymore. End credits.
Yep.
Episode 43. Victoria Winters reminds us that Collinwood is creepy, and so is the Collinsport area in general. At the restaurant, Bill enters where he is cheerily greeted by Maggie and orders a coffee, and they chat a bit.
I feel
Bill,
like they had a nice chemistry, just like I don't mean sexy chemistry, just they were nice and pleasant to watch and
yeah, Bill
worked
isn't
well.
usually friendly, and they have a friendly chat.
Yeah, it was nice.
Bill asks if Sam has been acting weird lately,
She's
to
like,
which Maggie's
"Dude."
like, he's always been weird.
She's like, "Dude, he's weird."
Bill is worried about him, but Maggie says he worries too much and is dismissive, which is funny given her constant haranguing of Sam to be like, "What is wrong with
I
you?"
took that as her being kind of cagey and protective of Sam, like, I know that he is a crazy mess, but he's my crazy mess, and I'm gonna make sure that no one's getting to the hot goss before her, I guess. I don't know.
She is annoyed to learn that it was Bill who, in fact, got him liquored up in the first place. Bill explains that Sam may have some dangerous information. And Maggie says that, oh, you can't believe anything he says when he's drunk. Bill goes on about his intention to do anything he can to help Liz. Opening credits.
It has occurred to me in this episode specifically, it sort of goes further than it has in the past, but it's occurred to me that Liz Stoddard has quite the line of gentlemen in love with her, but she's not fucking with. And I kind of aspire more to her level of like having she's this old rich shut-in and employs all these doting loyal fellas to moon over her and take care of the heavy lifting. And I'm like, hell yeah, Liz. That's it. That's the life.
Well, you're going to need to get yourself a small local business empire to lord over if
Wow.
you aspire to that.
I do not own a fishery, so I suppose I'll have to do my own heavy lifting.
Well, Maggie is trying to find out what Bill is going on about and says he must be talking about Roger or Burke since they've both been at the house. Maggie explains that she called Roger to try and find out what was going on, and that freaked Sam out. So Maggie figures out through this conversation that Burke isn't guilty and wonders if he's back for revenge. Bill asks, well, would you blame him? And she agrees that she would not. But they can't figure out what all this has to do with Sam. So Bill steps away to call Roger. And as he walks out, Vicky comes in and chats with Maggie. Vicky asks Bill if he's seen Carolyn and tells him that Liz is also waiting for his call. Bill says he'll call when he's done with what he's doing. Vicky asks what to tell Liz, and he says, oh, just tell her I'll be in touch, and she won't like that, but that's what you tell her. So Maggie tries to get information out of Vicky.
Now she's prying Vicky instead of her dad and Malloy.
Now it's Maggie's turn to give Vicky her sob story about how Sam used to be such a good dad mysteriously until 10
It was
years
so
ago.
sad. It was just reminiscing about how Sam was this wonderful, kind father, and then he went down this dark spiral mysteriously 10 years ago.
Right at the time where he sold some paintings for a bunch of money. So they had money for a minute, but have spent it all. Over at the Blue Whale, Bill is drinking as Joe comes in looking for Carolyn. He approaches Bill to let him know, hey, Liz needs you urgently. And also, everybody at work would like to know where the fuck you've been all day. Bill is drunk and asks Joe to stay for a drink, but Joe is
Off the sauce momentarily after his
regretfully sober after he got so embarrassingly drunk the night before, but he does offer to stay and keep Bill company. Bill is feeling sorry for himself about the position he's in. Joe offers to take him home. Bill teases him about, like, oh, you think I'm too drunk to Yeah, whatever. They talk about also how Sam is a sad old drunk, and they talk about Carolyn and how she wants Burke to bang her in Bangor. Bill is surprised. Joe decides to have that drink after all, now that he's sad about his straying girlfriend. Back at the restaurant, Maggie and Vicky are still visiting, and Maggie invites Vicky to come over and have dinner with her and Sam sometime. Oh, what a tempting invitation. Would you like? Sounds fucking miserable. But Vicky agrees and says her goodbyes to get back home. Sam enters as she exits, and they exchange a weird look. He explains to Maggie that they only met the one time up on the cliff, and he didn't introduce himself, and also he looked quite a bit different at the time. So
Did.
maybe that's why the awkward look. Maggie reveals that Bill is drunk over at the Blue Whale. Sam goes over to join Bill at the Blue Whale. Back at the Blue Whale, Joe is explaining his drunken outburst at Collinwood and why he isn't too keen on drinking at the moment. Bill tells Joe that he's right and he should be trying to get Carolyn out of Collinwood. And Bill also reveals, without saying it outright, that he wanted to marry Liz back in the day, but someone else beat him to it. So I think this is what you were talking about
Yes, this
earlier.
and there's more that comes.
Well, yeah.
But also she's got Matthew, who's just like, "Nobody say a word about my lassie," like
Yeah, but
it's
he's gross.
I don't know.
New Matthew? Gross
I haven't
new?
seen New Matthew because I didn't watch the
Oh,
other
you
shows.
didn't watch?
I just listened to you
We
tell me the story.
we're pausing this recording
Okay.
right now so Rebecca can meet new Matthew.
Okay.
Would you like to revise your statements about Matthew being dreamy now?
Yes, I would like to recant my further, or my previous assertion. Old Matthew, the first Matthew was dreamy and he baked muffins. This Matthew looking all like Igor, like being a creepy, weird mouth breather. Like, I don't know.
Anyhow, Sam arrives at the bar and shoos Joe away so that he and Bill can talk privately. Sam is trying to find out what he said when he was drunk, but Bill teases that he wouldn't want him to repeat it in the bar. Bill asks Sam if he has seen Roger. Back at Collinwood, Vicky descends the stairs to answer the door, and it's Joe back to tell Liz that he found Malloy. The phone rings and it's Carolyn. Vicky gestures to Joe like, "Hey, you want to talk to Carolyn?" And he does not. Carolyn confirms that she had lunch with Burke, clearly wanting Vicky to know.
Yeah, telling Vicky like, "Bitch, he's mine, he's mine." And then Vicky's response is like, well, how should I care who you have lunch with, bitch? Okay, like, do what you want to do. I'm just trying to take care of this terrible child. This is, conveyed through the one side of Vicky's conversation with Carolyn. And Joe starts to spin out.
Well,
Vicky
Vicky,
talks some sense into Joe and says, "What?"
she says, today Burke is something new and
Yeah.
exciting, but tomorrow he won't be. And like, once he's not a mystery anymore, maybe she won't be so fascinated with him.
Yeah, she's genuinely sweet to Joe about it and kind of like, Carolyn is a flighty person and that's just how it's gonna be, but she'll get over it.
And Joe leaves, and Vicky stares vacantly at the camera for a few seconds. It was a weird shot. Back at the Blue Whale, Bill and Sam are continuing to circle around the manslaughtering. Bill points out that he knows Sam knows something. Sam reveals that he tried to tell Liz the truth earlier and couldn't.
And Malloy says, "Well, maybe I can." And credits.
Not quite in
Oh, did I
that
miss
way.
something?
Well, Sam reveals that he had tried to tell Liz the truth and couldn't, and then he flees the bar.
Oh, that's right.
He's doing a lot of fleeing this episode, and after he's left, Bill says, "Perhaps I can," after Sam said he couldn't tell
Yes.
Liz.
That's
End
right.
credits. Episode 44, Victoria Winters, reminds us that Collinwood is full of creepy liars and hypocrites.
At the Blue Whale, Carolyn comes in and sees Bill. And Bill says that he thought she was in Bangor. He says that Joe mentioned it casually in passing. And they go back and forth about that for a little bit. He is clearly lit, and she asks how long he's been here. And he says he was born here and that his father and his father before him, like in the Bible. And that was really great.
She corrects him and is surprised to find him drunk, and he says that he seldom does drink. She's annoyed that Joe was spying on her, but he tries to explain, "Oh no, someone just happened to see you headed that way," and then also somebody called the hotel and knew that Burke was going to be in Bangor, that's all. She makes moon eyes at the mention of Burke.
Yeah.
In an opening credits. Bill asks if Carolyn wants anything from the bar, but she does not and needs to go home. And he mentions, "Oh, well, I'm headed up there too." And she offers to drive him because he's fucking drunk, but he declines. At Collinwood, Liz is pacing the drawing room before trying to call Ned again.
Then she's back on the phone where she lives lately. Like, she's been on the telephone a lot these last episodes. And she's trying to get a hold of Ned.
And she's anxious and making worried faces.
And then someone else bangs on the door, and it is a man named John, who is her banker.
She's inquiring about setting up a trust fund for David, and they talk a bit about Bill and how he is not a suitable replacement for Ned Calder to run the business. I guess they're saying he's good at the fish part, but bad at the business part, so they need someone to run the office. And she reveals the circumstances of Ned quitting is that he proposed to her and she declined, and that's why he quit. She insists when this John that we don't know is like, "Well, maybe you should get married." She insists that she's still married, and she's weird and cagey about it, but she's saved by the bell of the telephone, and conveniently, it is Ned returning her call. We don't hear his end of the conversation, but he seems to say he'll only come back if she'll marry him, and she won't. So she finishes the call and signs the paperwork for David's trust fund. John is explaining that this will make the purse strings tight, and she jokes about, like, "Oh, do I need to run around making sure all the lights are turned off?" And he's further explaining the situation about the bank notes and how there's a potential for someone to take over the company if the notes are purchased, and reveals that someone has been making inquiries about doing that. Carolyn returns and greets John, who we learn has the surname of Harris. When Carolyn reveals that she has been in Bangor, Liz demands to speak with her privately and is pissed. She forbids her from associating with Burke. She mentions that Bill was shocked about it too. She also reveals that Bill is drunk at the Blue Whale. Speak of the devil, he arrives right behind Carolyn. And so Liz sends Carolyn in to entertain Mr. Harris.
Let me entertain you.
Bill and Liz are arguing a bit when Bill eventually reveals that Burke is getting information about the manslaughtering accident. Liz asks if he's saying that Roger was driving, and Bill says, "Well, yes, and you probably knew that all along." But she's like, "No, nuh-uh." And the judge said, so
Yeah.
Bill reveals that there may be other evidence that wasn't introduced at trial. In the drawing room, Carolyn is making small talk about banking. Like, the fuck am I supposed to say to this dude?
Right. Well, and she gets bored with that and starts talking about Bert because she's boy crazy games. And she was telling Banker John all about this man and how she's crazy for him. She, in telling him all about how her wonderful date with Burke went. She mentions, oh, what was his name? Blair, the man that was working for and with Burke. And John the banker realizes that it is, in fact, the same guy who called asking about Liz's finances. And so he's all like, dun, 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 like, that's the same man. Oh no. And he doesn't say that, but he goes to interrupt Bill and
But
Liz.
before that, in the foyer, Bill tells Liz that he has damaging information about Roger, but he's not going to reveal the details until he has all of the facts.
Yeah.
And they're arguing about it when Mr. Harris comes in to interrupt and explain about Blair and Burke and their scheme to steal her money. Bill says he's going to prove Burke's innocence whether she likes it or not.
Bill was having his own emotionally drunken display at his unrequited love in Joe Haskell fashion and says that for the first time ever, he's going to go against her wishes.
He leaves and returns to the Blue Whale, where he calls Roger and demands that he join him there, or he's going to the police. End credits. Episode 45. Victoria Winters would like us to know that Collinwood is a creepy vortex, and I did wonder if Rebekah was going to make her vagina joke about that.
I didn't even think about it, but I feel like it's a missed opportunity, which is what everyone should be saying about my vagina. There you go.
About your creepy vortex.
About my creepy vortex.
At the Blue Whale, Bill calls Roger again to be like, "Where are you? I'm waiting for you at the bar." And Burke comes in. Bill strikes up a conversation. Burke asks Bill to join him for a drink, but Bill wants coffee because he's been drinking too much. And Bill is scolding Burke because he's found out about his financial scheming and does not approve. Opening credits. So Burke is trying to explain it away and be like, "Oh no, I just know
Yeah.
Blair from business in New York and we were just visiting."
Yeah, which is all very thinly veiled, but
Bill asks again that if he proves Burke's innocence, will Burke leave Liz alone? And Bill reveals he knows that it was Roger who framed him. Then they're just making friendly chit chat, and Burke is reminiscing about Bill being a nice guy when he gave him his first job 15 years ago.
and Bill is such a nice guy. We all love Bill. I think he's very nice and handsome and kind of sad.
Yeah,
Oh, I like him.
I dig him. Over at Roger's office, he's playing darts dramatically when Carolyn enters. They flirt. It's gross.
Yeah.
Roger answers a call and is a dick to an employee, and it's funny when Carolyn teases about being surprised that he actually does work there. They flirt some more. It's still gross.
Yeah, he's like, "You're turning into a woman," and then says some horrible bullshit, like some terrible misogynistic reason as to why she's a woman now, because I forget what he said.
He's basically like, "You're being manipulative and evasive,
Yeah.
then those are womanly qualities."
That was what I was trying to get at, and I couldn't find my words. Malloy barges in and says he's gonna stay here till it's settled or something.
He and Roger are staring each other down, and Carolyn's like, "Okay, well, you guys have fun with that."
Yeah, she bounces
Backs out of the room. Roger is throwing darts very near to Bill.
Did Carolyn cut her bangs in randomly?
I noticed
like
her hair is different from when she's at lunch with Bert
yes,
to
mid-episode.
then when she gets home, she has bangs.
Yes.
So she maybe just stopped for a haircut on the way
Sure.
home. I
In
don't know.
Bangor. Anyway.
Bangor.
Oh,
Bangs.
no.
Bangor.
That's
That's not even that funny, but I'm very
I'm
tickled.
tickled too.
Uh,
Anyway,
Poor little Carolyn went to Bangor so Burke would bang her, but he didn't, so she just got bangs.
Yeah.
Which is what you do when a boy won't bang you. Anyhow, Roger is throwing darts at Bill.
Yeah. I have that in my notes too.
Bill reveals that he knows Roger did the manslaughtering and that Sam is the source of that information. So Roger tries to dismiss him as the town drunk, but Bill insists that Roger go to the police or he will. Roger calls him insane, and Bill storms out with a "we'll see who's insane, motherfucker." And
Yeah.
Roger looks scared. Back at Collinwood in the drawing room, Carolyn is reading from the family history about the construction of the house and talking out loud to the painting of Jeremiah, which I guess they just all
Yeah,
do.
they just like to talk to him sometimes. That's nice.
Roger enters and she asks if he straightened things out with Malloy. Carolyn confesses to having lunch with Burke and shows off the fancy pin that he gave her. Roger is appalled that she accepted the pin because it's very expensive and he slut shames her, and then also says he's keeping the pin and will return it to Burke, and she's pissed and storms out. Bill calls asking Roger if he's going to go to the police, and Roger's like, "You're not my real dad, and you can't tell me what to do," and they argue. And Roger says he's gonna make Liz fire you while he fondles the pin. So Bill calls Burke at the end to meet at the Blue Whale. Back in the drawing room at Collinwood, Carolyn comes back in, and Roger teases her for being mad at him and calls her kitten, and she forgives him pretty quickly, and
Yeah.
it's gross.
Changes tact and is after his call with Malloy and goes back to flirting with his niece and being a creep.
And she reveals that she did, in fact, follow Burke to Bangor, and she explains about what happened with Blair to Roger, and also that Bill knows. So Roger stands dramatically near the window, but doesn't
Yes,
dramatically
not
look out the
staring out
window.
it,
So
just
his
standing
thing is
there.
just, yeah, being by the window and
Stand by a window.
pulling
dramatically.
faces. Over at the Blue Whale, Bill joins Burke and says everyone involved in this whole manslaughter secrets thing is going to meet at Roger's office at 11. End credits. Final thoughts,
Things are getting good.
right?
I'm very upset about losing Matthew, the good Matthew, and I'm very upset about losing the good Sam. I know you didn't like the first one any more than you like the second, maybe worse, but I liked it better.
I don't like either of them,
Sure.
but I think second Sam is better suited for the part. And really, I think second Matthew is also better suited for the part.
Never will you convince me.
Well, you'll see.
Okay,
Without
there's
telling you too much,
yeah.
a creepy old creep is appropriate for the role for things to come.
Like a scary groundskeeper.
Yes.
Grumly looking, creepy, doing things in a shed he ought not to be doing kind of creep. Anyway, I'm liking it a lot. Carolyn going after Burke and Vicky seemingly not really caring too much. There were a couple of times where she pulled a face or a look where it was a little like, okay, Carolyn and her boy craziness. God forbid I have anything nice. Like,
Follow us on Instagram at Ghosts Want You Dead, and maybe not TikTok because our social media manager has fallen down on the job. Leave us reviews, please.
please like and share if we
Please.
like dark shadows or you know someone who likes dark shadows.
Or if you don't like it at all,
Like us.
just want to hear a story.
We like telling you stories.
If you haven't watched the show, because I have noticed that some people are talking about boycotting Tubi, and I'm not sure quite why, but I know they're owned by Fox, who is evil, but everything is owned by an evil corporation.
It's true.
But I did want to tell folks, in case you didn't know, if you don't want to use Tubi to watch Dark Shadows, you can watch the whole thing for free on the Internet Archive and without commercials.
Yeah.
So that is another way to do so. Anyway, yeah, we're done. We'll be back with more
Bye.
darkness and shadows.
Bye.